I heard them long before I reached the end of the hallway. Chris's voice came first low, irritated, like someone annoyed by a fly they couldn't swat away. Then came Marissa's sharper tone, slicing through the air like a knife. They were speaking Spanish again, the language they believed wrapped them in secrecy. They had no idea I understood every word. For years, they assumed my silence meant ignorance. They never questioned why I remained expressionless when they spoke in front of me. They thought age had softened my senses, that my hearing had dulled along with my memory. But that morning, their words hit harder than they ever had. I stopped just a few steps before the kitchen doorway, heart tapping against my ribs. Marissa's voice carried first irritated, dismissive, dripping cruelty that she didn't bother to hide. "She's a burden," she said in Spanish. "Useless." The translation formed instantly in my mind. A burden. Useless. She was talking about me as though I were a discarded piece of furniture taking up space she wanted back. Chris responded with a sigh. "She should be in a home already," he said, as casually as someone commenting on the weather. I felt the words before my mind even processed the meaning. An ache settled in my chest, sharp and familiar. The kind that comes only from being betrayed by the people you once trusted. Marissa laughed, a short, unpleasant sound. "She's embarrassing. It doesn't matter how old you get, cruelty always finds a new place to land." I pressed my fingers together to stop them from trembling, swallowing down a sadness that threatened to show on my face. They still didn't know their secret language was no secret at all. When guests arrived a few minutes later, the performance began. Marissa switched instantly to English, her voice suddenly sweet and polite. "She's only staying with us temporarily," she announced loudly, as if rehearsed. "We take such good care of her." Inside me, the words twisted. Care. They couldn't even pour me a cup of coffee. The pot sat right in front of them, but they brewed only enough for themselves, chatting comfortably while pretending I didn't exist. I stepped into the living room slowly, hoping to blend into the background. But Marissa turned to me with a tight smile. "Don't hover," she whispered sharply. "You make the house feel crowded." Her eyes warned me not to react, but something inside me shifted that morning. A small spark in the quiet part of my soul that whispered, "This time, you will not stay silent." Because just when I thought their words had cut deep enough, I heard something next that froze me in place, something about Logan, my first husband, and it changed everything. I stood frozen behind the doorway, the sound of Logan's name crashing into me like a wave I wasn't prepared for. Logan, my first husband, the man whose memory still lived quietly in the corners of my mind, tucked in the same place as old photographs and forgotten lullabies. It had been years since anyone brought him up, years since his name passed through someone else's lips. But there it was, spoken casually by my own son. "He left her money, didn't he?" Chris whispered in Spanish, his tone low but not low enough. "I swear she's hiding something. Logan didn't just leave her love letters. He left her assets." Marissa let out a cold snort. "If there's money, we deserve it. She doesn't even use it. She barely thinks straight." Their voices blurred for a moment as something inside me curled painfully. Logan had left me things, yes, but not what they imagined. He left me letters, journals, photographs, and a small policy meant for my future comfort, not theirs. But greed didn't care about boundaries. Marissa leaned closer to Chris, lowering her voice to a hiss. "We should find the documents before she forgets where they are." A tremor ran through me. My memory wasn't perfect anymore, but I remembered one thing clearly. I hadn't told either of them where I kept Logan's papers. I hid them long before moving into this house, long before their resentment bloomed into something sharper. They believed I was weak. They believed time had worn me down. But they had no idea how much I heard, how much I noticed, how much strength still lived inside me. As they continued talking, something else slipped out, something that made my breath hitch. "Once she's in a home," Marissa said calmly, "we can clean out her things without her interfering." She said it as if she were talking about taking out trash. Chris didn't protest. He didn't defend me. He simply nodded. A slow, heavy numbness spread through my chest. Not anger, not shock. Something quieter, something heavier. Grief, not for Logan, not for myself, but for the son who once held my hand crossing the street. The son who now plotted to push me out of my life like sweeping dust off a table. When footsteps moved their direction, I stepped back quickly. pretending to adjust a vase on the shelf. When they saw me, they plastered on stiff smiles. "Mom," Chris said warmly, "you should rest. You're overexerting yourself again." His voice held an edge I now recognized, impatience wearing a mask. I nodded slowly, but inside, something hardened. Something awakened. I wasn't just overhearing their cruelty. I was overhearing their plan. But nothing prepared me for what I found later that night. Small leather notebook hidden behind the dresser, with a message inside, addressed to me, in Logan's handwriting. That night, long after the house quieted and the walls stopped echoing their whispers, I sat on the edge of my bed, thinking of Logan. His memory had always been a warm place for me to rest. Not a wound, not a threat. But after what I heard earlier, his name now felt different. Like it was suddenly tied to a danger I didn't yet understand. I decided to clean the room, an excuse, really, just to distract my mind. My hands moved slowly, picking up small things, dusting shelves, folding blankets. When I reached for the dresser, my fingers brushed against something wedged between the wood and the wall, a corner of worn leather. Curious, I pulled until a small brown notebook slid free, covered in dust but unmistakably familiar. My heart stopped. The leather, the stitching, the faint scent of cedar, it was Logan's. The notebook he kept with him everywhere. The one he wrote in during quiet evenings or early mornings when inspiration struck him. I thought I'd packed it away years ago. Yet here it was, hidden behind a dresser in a house that was never his. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first pages were filled with his handwriting, soft curves, uneven strokes, messy when he wrote too fast, careful when he wrote about me, notes about our early days, reminders he made to himself, and small sketches of flowers he knew I loved. But then, one page stopped me cold. It wasn't dated. It wasn't even a full sentence. Just one line. Written later, the ink darker, fresher than the rest. "If she ever feels unsafe, tell her not to trust the ones closest." The breath left my lungs. I read the sentence again. And again. Unsafe. He wrote this years ago, long before Chris married Marissa. Long before we lived under the same roof. How could he have known anything like this would happen? Or had he sensed something about people in general? Something about the way kindness can sour in the presence of greed? Another thought chilled me. Had someone placed this notebook here recently? Or had it always been hidden, and only now decided to reveal itself? I flipped to the next page. And there was more writing, but this one was clearly not Logan's. Different handwriting. Sharper. Newer. A message in English. "She won't last long. We'll make sure of it." My heart pounded so violently I felt dizzy. Who wrote this? How did it get into Logan's notebook? And why hide it in my room? Footsteps creaked outside my door, slow, deliberate. Someone was awake. I quickly tucked the notebook beneath my pillow just as the doorknob turned slightly, then stopped, as if someone was checking whether I was asleep. I didn't breathe. After a long pause, the footsteps retreated, but I no longer felt safe in my own room. And the next morning, when I discovered the drawer in the hallway, ripped open, with my belongings scattered everywhere, I realized one terrifying truth. They knew I found something, and now they were looking for it. Morning arrived like a warning. Before I even stepped out of bed, I sensed something was wrong. The house was too quiet, not peaceful, but tense, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. When I opened my bedroom door, the cold air hit me first. Then the sight in the hallway made my stomach drop. The small drawer where I kept my scarves and old journals had been pulled open violently. Its contents were scattered across the floor like someone had rummaged through it in a rush. Shawls, letters, photos. Even my old reading glasses lay trampled as if they meant nothing. They were searching for Logan's notebook. I pressed a hand against my chest, feeling the weight of the notebook still hidden beneath my pillow. If they found it, if they saw the message inside, I knew they wouldn't just try to intimidate me. They'd escalate. "Honey, did you do this?" I called out softly, testing the air. No response. A moment later, Chris appeared at the top of the stairs. His hair was still messy from sleep, but his eyes were alert, too alert for someone who had just woken up. "Mom," he said, forcing a casual tone, "you really need to stop leaving things lying around. You tripped over your own drawer last night." Marissa cleaned it up. My blood ran cold. I hadn't touched that drawer in days. Before I could respond, Marissa emerged behind him, wearing her usual strained smile. Her gaze flicked to the mess, then to my face, and something sharp glimmered in her eyes. "You really should be more careful," she said sweetly. "At your age, a fall could be serious." The words slid out like poison coated in sugar. I didn't argue. I didn't reveal fear. I just nodded slowly, letting them believe they still had control, all while clutching my hands together, hiding the fact that they were trembling. By noon, they were whispering again, in Spanish, assuming I was too old or too broken to understand. "She found something," Marissa said. "I can feel it. She's changed." Chris mumbled, "We need to move faster. Before the wedding. Before someone starts asking questions." My heart pounded so loudly I thought they'd hear it. The wedding, the bridge, the plan. It was all connected. As soon as they left the house for groceries, I moved, quickly, quietly, purposefully. I grabbed my purse, the notebook, and the envelope of important documents I had hidden behind my bed frame years ago. For the first time in months, my legs felt steady. I stepped outside, the sunlight warming my face, and walked away from the house they thought would be my prison. I didn't look back. At the bus stop, I sat down slowly, the notebook clutched in both hands. Logan's words echoed through me. "If she ever feels unsafe, tell her not to trust the ones closest." He had been right. As the bus approached, I took a deep breath. I was no longer scared. I was ready. But what I didn't expect, what stopped me completely, was seeing Chris's car speeding down the road toward me, with a look on his face I couldn't yet understand.